Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing from Sword and Shield is said to be the worst Pokemon gimmick by many. While I do believe it embodies the word gimmick more than any other battle mechanic, I still think they're pretty fun. Max moves can be very dynamic. Wait a minute. And while Gigantamax forms are often functionally worse than the default forms, some of those designs slap. Dare I say harder than some Mega Evolutions? But more on their gameplay later, because today I'm doing a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Sword using only Gigantamax Pokemon. Dynamaxing is usually banned from hardcore Nuzlocks, so I've come up with a workaround to allow it while staying fair and balanced. Even when using it every chance I get. The beginning of these games actually house a sizable amount of Gigantamax candidates. I want to say every route's got a Pokemon who could join our team, and our very first one is a starter. Go figure. Grass and water types aren't uncommon, so my first starter Pokemon will be Largerace the Scorbunny. I love this little guy, but honestly the love might be left over from that one time I saw a fan art in 2018 that I thought was real. Largerace won't be on his lonesome for long, because after our first battle against Hop, Route 1 introduces us to no one, because I'm delaying the encounter. All of the contenders are pretty good, but there's one in particular that I want, and the encounter on Route 2 should help out with that. Beefy Beetle the Blipbug. The random encounter here could have also been a Rookity, but we can get one later if we really need to. Now that we have Beefy Beetle, and because Rookity is only an overworld spawn in Route 1, we're guaranteed to find Burly-Free the Caterpie. It's really good that I delayed the encounter because I ran into like 5 Blipbugs before this. Burly-Free is essentially the earliest Pokemon I could Gigantamax. Speaking of, by some stroke of luck, my Pokemon will have the inexplicable ability to Gigantamax from the start. That's pretty convenient. But low-genuinely, it's probably because I'm Cuzmaxing. It's just too bad that both of my bugs' natures are abysmal. Another hot battle takes place before we can continue, but even with my 2 poorly natured insects, the battle is won with no repercussions. That probably has something to do with our latent kaiju energy. Or the Oranberries. The jury's still out. The wild area is home to countless Pokemon. And an oil rig too? What? While I could probably finesse getting dozens of Gmax Pokemon here, I'm gonna take it easy so that I don't get overwhelmed. I only have so much love to give, and Largerace alone at least deserves 6% of it. That's a lot. I will make one exception though. It might be because of the anime, but man, I really like the Krabby line. More so its later forms, to be fair, and right now I'm kind of mixed on the nature, but Bigler is a very welcome addition. With that, the season's Pokemon League opening ceremony is now underway, and now it's over. We've officially entered the Gym Challenge, and you know what that means? Another battle against Hop. This one's cute, it's purely for story flavor, so I'll let it slide. But our battle against Speed has a slightly larger chance to go south. Solosis is the most threatening thing on his team. Not because it's powerful, though it is, but because it has Endeavor. Beefy Beetle has a chance to one-shot Solosis, which would let him sweep from there. But if he doesn't, and Beed brings us to the red with Endeavor in return, then we'll get put on the back foot. It's a gamble that I can't really do much about, and we lose the gamble. Switching now would be the wrong play, since Beed is probably just going to use Endeavor again, so Beefy Beetle stays in to take them out. Then sets up a light screen in the face of Hatenna before living a hit and swapping places with Burly-Free. Could I have used Burly-Free from the start for more consistent damage with Bug Bite? Sure, but he doesn't take hits quite as well as his under-evolved brother. Fortunately, the light screen keeps us comfortable enough to risk the confusion self-hits. Of which we got none. Then when Gothita appears, we land a Compound Eyes assisted Sleep Powder to guarantee our follow-up knockout. Another reason I abstain from leading with Burly-Free is because he's gonna get plenty of screen time in the first gym. So how do I balance Dynamaxing? Well, for starters, when I play these games normally, I fight the gym leaders using the anime rules. That would make our battle against Milo a 2v2 normally. But if I'm gonna be Gigantamaxing my Pokemon, I'll have to bring one less team member. If Dynamaxing doubles your Pokemon's health, then it'll count as double the Pokemon, is basically my mindset. Burly-Free does have a great matchup into grass types, but he will be entirely on his own. Sorry, Largerace. It should be obvious why I was so set on picking up Burly-Free. Not only do we get a cool signature max move, but we also get access to one of the best attacks in the game. Literally any flying attack. The flying type is a really good offensive type, only hindered by the low base power moves and or low accuracy. Or recoil, but Max Stream hits hard, hits all of the time, and raises our speed by 1 stage. Not that we need it, but a held expert belt helps this airstream send Milo's Gossifleur all the way back to Hoenn. Of course, Milo won't be taking that lying down, so he Dynamaxes his ace Pokemon, Eldegoss. This Pokemon is bulky enough that we won't be one-shotting them, but that'll give Burly-Free the ability to showcase his aforementioned signature max move. Gmax Befuddle has 120 base power off of the physical bug moves, and is guaranteed to either poison, paralyze, or sleep the opponent. We get at least something from our plus attack nature, and the poison from the befuddlement helps too. Not even Heldegoss's max moves could do anything to us, and our previous 2 damage perks just barely put the first boss in range for max airstream. I know we kinda popped off here, and Gmax is great and all, but that was only the first gym. The other aces will be posing real problems going forward without the right strategies. Oh sick, Magical Leaf! Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the video so far, then I'd really appreciate you leaving a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're on mobile, then check to see if you have the hype button. YouTube's algorithm is really fickle, but if you do any of these things, then it'd really help me out. Anyway, thank you! Now, if only I had somebody to give Magical Leaf to. Well, the Pokécenter nurses never fail to remind me that I have access to the Isle of Armor, which means in extent that I also have access to the Kanto starter of choice. Yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I can't evolve an Applin until 3 badges in. Immensor has a very important role on the team, being a grass type, and the Magical Leaf TM is going to propel him even further. The reason I'm not particularly proud is because the Bulbasaur line is so good, and I use them so often. I am Team Bulbasaur, however, so I'll find the strength to carry on. Somehow. Unfortunately, Immensor is unable to Gigantamax as of yet, and Burlyfree doesn't have a great matchup into Nessa's Dreadnought, even if Nessa doesn't have any rock moves. So, while we're in the DLC, I also decide to pick up Choodle and name him Grandgnaw. This little behemoth evolves at level 22, which is so insane to me. But that's more than okay with me, because I really do not like looking at Choodle. Oh, that's Applin's evolution item just lying around. Well, I can't pass up an early game Flapple, and Applin are a dime a dozen just 1 forest over. Typically, Fatbull wouldn't have access to any grass moves for quite some time, but Mustard's dojo has a move tutor offering Grassy Glide, which is just perfect for the hungry worm. Furthermore, I could pick up a baby Toxel from the daycare on Route 3, and while I very much welcome Vastricity, I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed. If every Pokemon gets 6% of my love, then that means I'm already out like 48% of my love reserves. I mean, the natures are still pretty bad all around, so maybe I'll lower their love split to like 5%. Now, if I were to play optimally, I would simply lead the next gym fight with Fatbull, set up a Dragon Dance, Gigantamax, and sweep from there. But we've already got so many things going for us that I don't need to be that sweaty just yet. Nessa is scarier and will be able to get way more damage off on us than Milo, but really, most trainers would fill that description. Immensor takes the lead and deals with the first 2 water types, no problem. I wanted her to also help out against the Dynamaxing Ace, but she took way too much damage beforehand for us to risk it. Instead, Fatbull will be tagging in on an entirely healthy Dreadnought who very comfortably uses Max Strike, their strongest move for grass types, and proceeds to lower our speed. When I was in the match, I thought this was more relevant, but apparently Flapple is slower than Dreadnought by default, somehow. Fatbull immediately Gigantamaxes in return, and enters a form that really doesn't fit either Flapple or Appleton, now that I think about it. The Convergent Blastoise uses Max Strike again, and to make up for the increased health, they get a crit. Fatbull's Gmax Tartness has a chance to kill in 1 hit, but it is a coin flip. Thanks to Dreadnaught's crit, we can't really afford to miss the kill, so Fatbull goes all out and lands a crit herself. The max move also lowered their evasion, but that wouldn't have done anything for us anyways. Max moves can't miss. Not that we needed it, but we got something of a breather before challenging the next gym. Chairman Rose and I go on a dinner date, which didn't feel like it at first, but then I realized he was already in his underwear. Bede wants his lick back, but too bad for him, Grandgnaw knows how to use its jaw. And then we battle Marnie for the first time. The first time should have been around the Pokemon League ceremony, but I'll move on from the weird pacing of this game. One day. Anyways, she wasn't that difficult either. I would be saying the same thing for Kabu, but while using Bigler to complete the gym's challenge, the worst thing imaginable happened. My little crab had recently received the Surf TM. She's not a special attacker, but it's still a strong move. We use this move to defeat the wild Pokemon and earn points for the gym challenge. However, the gym trainer's goal is to inhibit us by taking the points for themselves. Or in my case, knock us out. While fighting the gym's Litwick, Surf crits the gym trainer's Sizzlipede. Slantic comes out next, which I didn't even know existed in this fight, and uses Poison Fang, which got the poison. Our next Surf barely misses the kill, and Litwick hexes Bigler. Man, Gmax Kingler is a top 3 Gmax design. I was the most excited to use that one. Sure, I could have used Grandgnaw to have an easier time, but I really didn't think I needed to. Well, I guess I could pick up another encounter for the gym fight now, and at least my love supplies will be net neutral. If only this new encounter would help. Even though Grandgnaw is great in this gym, I did not plan on sweeping. I actually planned on Bigler taking out both Ninetales and Arcanine. Surf could have two-shot both of them, and Bigler's Rostberry and Presence alone could have shielded Grandnaw from a burn and Intimidate. Now my oddly fast Tortoise will be leading, and I really hope she can sweep. This might be overzealous and unnecessary, but we spend the very first turn Gigantamaxing. We could have waited, especially because Ninetales doesn't do much damage to us, but my goal was to take them out in one hit. Because they led with Fire Spin instead of Will-O-Wisp, this would have been the correct play, but Gmax Stone Surge did not get the kill, as it was based off of a special attack, so it's the wrong play. At least we set the Stealth Rocks. Ninetales burns us with Will-O-Wisp after all, only to get undone by a Rostberry before going down to max Rockfall. While we should have used Rockfall to begin with, the stones on the field put Arcanine into kill range, even after their anticipated Intimidate and Will-O-Wisp burn. Grandnaw is really going through it, and if I had recalibrated just a little better after Bigler's death, we'd probably still have our Gmax ready for Centiskorch. Again, the Stealth Rocks from the Stone Surge are a nice consolation, but it might not be enough. Because of all the debuffs, Rock Tomb only does a quarter now. And while Grandnaw resists the Gmax Centiskorch's max Flutterby, it still does half. We're in trouble now. Protecting the solid max turn doesn't do anything here, so I look to my newest buddy. Kilo Scorch has the Flash Fire ability, and could tag in for free. He could even manage to get the kill with an assist from the Sandstorm that we set. But we know Centiskorch isn't using fire attacks. The new teammate can switch in and save the day, but only if Grandnaw dies. I'm mostly hesitant to stay in due to the Rock Tomb's chance to miss, but that's a risk we'll have to take. And thankfully, Grandnaw manages to hit her target the size of a small school and clutches up the fight. I figured this challenge would run into some hurdles, but I really didn't think the third gym would be one of them. Excluding a little character development for Hop, and canonically 2 battles involving him, the only thing of note within this trek to the 4th gym is that everybody on the team now reached their final forms. Bigler would have been among them. Well, actually, not everyone evolves, because just beyond our next stop, Glimwood Tangle offers up our next buddy. There's a little RNG at play as we could get one of 2 Mons, and I got Morgrim. Was really hoping to get the Psychic type Hatchrim for the fighting gym, but I mean, Morgrim is part fairy? If only they got fairy moves. I imagined my team would be a little more prepared for B. Don't get me wrong, these 3 Pokemon that I'm bringing all have categories where they thrive in, but together against the hyper-offensive fighting gym, they're not the most synergetic. The main problem is that I want to give Beefy Beetle the right timing to do his thing and use Psychic moves. But with most of the gym having dark coverage, that's easier said than done. Hitmontop is the only one without said coverage at least, so while we take away more damage than I imagined from Quick Attack, we could still set up Reflect. If I'm lucky, the Light Clay will keep it around until Beefy Beetle returns again. But for now, Burleyfree takes the field and is actually an amazing Pokemon for the whole gym. We don't have time to use supporting moves like Tailwind or Sleep Powder with Reflect ticking away, but with an Expert Belt, Air Slash is able to tear through the team. Air Slash high rolls and takes out the Hitmontop in one go, and while Pangoro is a 2-hit, and we're in kill range of their Night Slash, it isn't guaranteed with Reflect, so they set up instead. Bye-bye. Now, Surfetch'd would be even easier to take out, as Air Slash has a guaranteed kill here. However, only 2 turns remain on our Reflect, and I need to have Beefy Beetle ready for the Machamp. If I send him in after the ace is already sent out, I would just be switching him in to a Max Darkness. Instead, I'd get ahead of the curve and pivot my very hungry Caterpillar into a Detect. It looks like B planned on stalling out our screens, but that's okay. The reason I tagged Fat Bull in first was so that Surfetch'd would be baited into using Revenge instead of the Dark-type Brutal Swing. If I knew they were going for the Detect, I would have not done this, but it's fine. Our Reflect has finally worn off, but with Brutal Swing on the table, we can't afford to set it up again. Beefy Beetle seizes the opportunity to go on the offensive and Gigantamaxes. My Flying Saucer is among the fastest Pokemon on rotation, and I have no worries about whether or not we'll win this matchup. What I didn't consider was Detect, which is crazy considering I saw them do it a second ago. I could have set up Reflect again. That one's on me. Now I know. After a second Detect in a row fails, thank goodness, Surfetch'd goes down. The secondary effect of our Gmax Gravitas is that it sets Gravity. It's a really cool effect that grounds airborne Pokemon and even makes Fatbull's Grav Apple stronger. The problem is that I really would have preferred setting the Psychic terrain to make our Psychic moves stronger instead. Without that buff, even after leveling up mid-match, our Gravitas isn't even a 2-hit. Gmax Machamp uses Max Darkness after all, and Beefy Beetle survives! But our transformation has run out. A regular old Psychic won't be nearly enough now, and we're in trouble. Neither Bug is bulky enough to do the job here, and I don't want to sack anyone. So Fat Bull returns to the fight. She's just tanky enough to handily survive her own Max Darkness, and another one with the help of a Protect. This stalls the final Max turn, letting me switch out to Burly Free again. Now, you're probably thinking, why didn't you just use Fat Bull to use Acrobatics when the Machamp's HP returned to normal? Fat Bull was faster, and it would have been enough to kill by now. Well, I don't know. I had to steer way more in this fight than I anticipated, and I started going off-road. I was overthinking and misplayed so horribly here that while I did notice Burly Free switching into a Scary Face, cutting his speed in half, I did not consider the knockoff doing double damage and taking him out. Man, what a fumble. In all likelihood, Burly Free was going to retire. He was already power crept by a decent amount, so this would have been his last fight. Well, I mean, it was, but with all he's done up till now, he should have been able to kick back and relax from here on. This isn't the first of my mistakes, and what I didn't know at the time was that it wouldn't be my last. After the gym, Beat helps me recalibrate by giving me a baby easy battle with baby level challenges, which is great because there's literally nothing else to break up the gym fights. I mean, there are a couple steel types I could catch in the meantime, and like, I'd love to, but the remaining part of my heart that isn't loving my team is mourning. I don't have any emotional room for more Pokemon at the moment. And besides, it's Opal. Her fight is easy. Sadly though, Large Race will remain outside of the limelight, but he did help out against the gym trainers. Dealing with the Gardevoir would have been a huge problem otherwise. Regarding Opal herself, even if she didn't give the player free stat boosts during the fight, her Pokemon's movesets would make the battle free anyways. Weezing only has Sludge, Tackle, and Fairy Wind, so Immensaur takes the win while getting a speed buff along the way. Togekiss predictably comes out next, but we can for sure live in Air Slash after Black Sludge heals. And Sleep Powder does its thing first. Of course we took too long to get to this point, and Immensaur now got a buff to her defenses too. She could probably sweep from here, but this is the perfect place for Vastricity to make her debut. Unfortunately, Discharge isn't enough to get the one-shot, but all they could do is wake up and use Ancient Power, which isn't a big deal. Togekiss goes down, and this isn't necessary, but in the face of Mawile, we Gigantamax. Is it brave for me to say that Gmax Toxtricity is the best Gmax form? Like, I think there are a lot of great Gmax designs, but not having this one in the newer games is the biggest tragedy. Gmax Stun Shock would have either poisoned or paralyzed Mawile if she survived, and if she wasn't a Steel type. And when Alcremie appears, we get the final boost to our attack stats. Somehow it still isn't quite enough to Oko the wedding cake, but nothing stops us from trying again. I don't know, maybe next time I'll answer the questions incorrectly and get B-buffs to make the gym more interesting, but I will take a deathless win for now though. Oh cool, Hop's back. You know, I was getting pretty worried they forgot about him. Gordie is our next major opponent, and if I'm being completely honest, I'm a little worried. This is my first time ever playing Pokemon Sword, so it'll be a completely new experience. On top of that, I've been no stranger to mishaps on this run. The next few gyms are Mishap City, and I learned the hard way that there will be no room for error. Dynamax Pokemon are really strong, no doubt, but if things go south and my Gmax turns run out, then I'm always getting punished. That being said, I think it's time for a new encounter. On Route 8 leading up to Sirchester, we're guaranteed to find Monolith Honda the Sandaconda. Wow, it's like staring down a shotgun. I'm glad she was an easy capture, because I keep forgetting to buy Pokeballs better than Pokeballs. But you know, the capture was probably so easy because Monolith Honda has one of the worst natures she could have. Maybe that's another theme on this run. Fortunately, just like with his mom, the first portion of Gordie's fight is pretty straightforward. All I really need to... Wow! Did he just backflip and turn around on command? No momentum or anything? Okay, given her versatility, Immensaur could take out the first 3 opponents with ease. Barbaracle is one-shot by Magical Leaf, no problems there. Shuckle is annoying with moves like Power Split and Struggle Bug, but both Leech Seed and Sleep Powder give us an easy time wearing them away. And then finally, Stonjourner swaps its lackluster special defense with its amazing physical defense with Wonder Room in order to survive a Magical Leaf. But that's fine, we just trade a Stealth Rocks and a Petal Blizzard the following turn. I'm not very familiar with Wonder Room. I think this is the first time I've seen it used properly in-game, but nice try, buddy. Colossal is where I need to switch things up. Max Flare off of Heat Crash is going to do numbers, even to the physically defensive Monolith Cobra. So I'm pivoting with Grandma first. She's quad resistant to fire attacks, and should bait Colossal's Gmax Volcalith next. Even with the residual damage from the volcanic rock, Monolith Cobra should be perfectly safe to... Okay, to be completely fair, with both the Sun and Wonder Room up, Max Flare always killed Monolith Cobra, even from 100%. But why on earth did it go for Max Flare? The only reason I can imagine is because the Volcalith's residual rock damage doesn't affect rock types. Even though it would have done more damage to Grandnaw, I guess the AI saw the immunity to the rocks and went for the other move instead? You learn something new every day. Dude, if anyone was wondering, Toxtricity, Kingler, and Sandaconda are my top 3 favorite Gmax forms. That's another one down. Things aren't looking great for you, Vestricity. And we aren't out of the woods just yet. With the sun up, there's only a chance that we'll take out the volcano from full health with a water type attack. And tragically, it looks like we got the lowest roll possible. Now, Colossal Steam Engine ability has maxed out their speed, and this time they of course use Gmax Volcalith and do a little more damage than I anticipated. But from here, the battle's in the bag. Their max turns are over, and neither Heat Crash nor Rock Tomb will be doing anything to us, especially with the Wonder Room ending. We get to use Gmax Stone Surge one more time, and finally put this battle behind us. I mean, really, the death was just a game knowledge thing. Something niche in every sense of the word, but something I probably could have known beforehand anyways. I'm also not even sure how Stone Churner outsped Immensor to begin with, but this death rattled me just as much as the first two. Of course, the run is alive, along with most of the encounters, which is functionally all that matters, but I never go into a fight planning to sack someone in vanilla games. I know deathless options are always possible, so I always aim for them. Because of that, deaths always feel like a slap in the face. From my own hand. Monolith Cobra was my only ground type for the entire run. Now without one, I've got some tougher matchups going forward. Hop is bouncing back from his low point while happily greeting me at mine. The 7th battle against him doesn't play out any worse for me than the previous fights, but man, for some reason there's this burning feeling in my chest. I wonder what that's all about. Marnie's also next, but with Gigantarl being fully evolved now, she was even easier. Amidst all this loss, I'm gonna need more help going forward. More alive help. I'm losing Pokemon at a rate that I wasn't mentally prepared for, so I returned to the wild area, specifically Bridgefield, to catch a Cufant. Cufant? I quickly evolve him and give him the name of Cosmic Aja, and this guy's got a strange assortment of attacks for an elephant. But like, a good assortment? And if Game Freak were benevolent, I could get my next mon right here in the wild area as well. I mean, I technically can, but it only spawns at level 56. If I want to get it before the final battle of the game, its only other location is in the Bay Area on Route 9. In this specific spot, at a 1% encounter rate with a fishing rod. And wow, I've caught multiple shinies in Legends ZA in the amount of time it took me to find Lap Massive, and somehow finding him was still under odds. I'm so glad we're past this point in Pokemon. Also, I'm certain now that this run is destined to always have horrible natures. I might be cursed. The gym fight against Piers is a little more interesting than normal, because without a power spot to enable Dynamaxing, this is the only gym in the game where it's an equal matchup. And it's pretty lucky in a way, because I actually need 4 mons for this. Gigantarl is a great bring, just like against Marnie. I was kind of hoping we'd outspeed Scrafty and be the one to land Fake Out, but it's fine. Even with the attack drop from Intimidate, Spirit Break is enough to one-shot them and heal most of the damage back with the Shell Bell. Obstagoon is quite the obstacle. Both Obstruct and Counter are really dangerous for a squad of mostly physical attackers. Kill Scorch and his Bug Bite would do great damage, but because it never one-shots, we opt for Will-O-Wisp instead. Sorry buddy, I know you want a little more action. Because this is where Vastricity comes in. The burn nerfing their attack and health pool makes me pretty confident in Overdrive doing its job, but it's a sound-based move, and Throat Chop disables all of those attacks. Well, again, the burn gives us enough leeway to whittle Obstagoon's health down to 0 with Venoshock eventually. Malamar is next, and hard countered by Gigantarl. Foul Play is their best move into us, and even that isn't doing anything. Man, Dark Fairy is such a cool typing. But Skuntank is more of a technical mon than a good one. Cosmic Aja can't be toxic or snarled for much damage. However, it turns out that Screech combos very well into Sucker Punch. Cosmic Aja can retreat underground, for some reason, to heal back some health with leftovers. Unfortunately, the attack only brings Skuntank to the yellow, but because Sucker Punch is their only real move, we can play around that by undoing Screech with Iron Defense. If we don't attack, they can't Sucker Punch. And because they need their limited Sucker Punches to be stronger, they always go for Screech again. Cosmic Aja then goes on the offensive and defeats Piers' ace, while avoiding the Aftermath knockout thanks to leftovers. All things considered, not bad. I don't mind a more classic gym battle mixing things up on the run, and I needed the mental reset with the challenge that Raihan is bringing. The synergies that come from double battles make Pokemon a much more dynamic game, and I will die on the hill that they should at least be as present as single battles. With double battles, even the gym trainers can be somewhat challenging. They're able to utilize strategies that are too impractical for single battles, and if I couldn't preview what was coming ahead of time, I'd actually be in trouble. That's doubly true for Raihan. Double battles are already more challenging to plan for in many cases, but I would argue that Dynamaxing was made specifically for the format. The difference in this run is that I can use it too. As always, my goal is to leave Duraludon on his own by the time he enters. Half of the challenge is taking him down with his Gmax form, while the other half would be dealing with his support. Luckily, I've got a way to virtually guarantee that with my Kanto comrades. Lat Massive is a great Gmax choice this time, but we won't be using his signature move quite yet. Instead, after taking notable damage from Flygon's Breaking Swipe, Immensor uses Grass Pledge, while Lat Massive uses Max Geyser, both focusing down the Gigalith. I wanted to get rid of the Sandstorm that they set, and even if we used Max Resonance to set up an Aurora Veil, Gigalith could still do scary damage with Rock Blast after. I needed it gone as soon as possible. Now, with the Sandaconda out and the rain up, Raihan is right where we want him. Should the Flygon have gone for Thunder Punch and scored a Paralysis either time, that would have been a huge boon to our chances, but now we have nothing to worry about. Immensor has access to Weather Ball, which, thanks to the rain, turns into a 100 base power water type attack. And we all know how bad Sandaconda's special defense is. Sure, we could have used Grass Pledge, but Weather Ball was actually a more reliable kill here. The Spring Snake's Sand Spit ability activates afterwards, which was also part of my plan. Lat Massive finally uses Gmax Resonance to take out the Flygon, which sets the Aurora Veil and raises all of our defenses for the rest of the fight. With the Duraludon, my plan was foolproof. Another Max Resonance will do crazy damage, and with the Sand Up, Weather Ball should turn into a super effective special ground attack. Fortunately, I double checked last second and learned that the Sandstorm actually turns the Weather Ball into a rock type move. Weird. Well, Sleep Powder is the next best thing, and a 75% accurate move has never steered me wrong before. With our turns of Gmax coming to a close, my new Ice type is way more susceptible to all Duraludon's attacks, but we're still on top of things. On turn 1 of the Sleep, we do amazing damage to the opposing Skyscraper, leaving them in the red. Duraludon is fast enough to outspeed all current mons on the field, but if I pivot to Larger Ace, a crit Max Rockfall would one-shot him. I'm dreading of the possibility of a turn 2 Wake Up and possibly even a crit, but we're low on leeway. Fortunately, even with the 2 attack drops from Flygon's Breaking Swipes, somehow Duraludon is low enough that Lat Massive's Priority Ice Shard is just low enough to seal the deal. Kinda sad that Larger Ace, again, only contributed to the Gym Trainer battles, but honestly, he would have only shown up in the scenario that there was a tragedy, so it's probably a good thing. I also almost got rid of Ice Shard to use some other max move for support, so I'm really glad I didn't make that change. The 10th and final route of the game is one long hallway with tons of hall monitors that I actually need to prepare for. On a normal playthrough they're whatever, but I learned the hard way that these trainers really know how to catch you slipping. And even if they don't, the EXP management is so stressful for no reason. Like, I understand that these games aren't balanced with Nuzlocks in mind by any means, but why does the level cap only go from 48 to 49 here? Even in a normal playthrough with no EXP charm, that jump makes no sense. And because of how little wiggle room we have, I had to only bring 4 mons to the last battle on Route 10. This one is always the worst. The Pokemon I'm fighting aren't the best, but they always manage to do insane damage to me. They even had Cosmic Aja use Dig on a flying type just to avoid damage. We made it out in the end, barely, but unfortunately, Larger Ace was pushed to level 50. Tragically, this means he won't be able to contribute to the final battle against Hop and his Rillaboom. But I guess the percussive gorilla does get access to high horsepower now, so bringing my starter might have been the wrong move anyways. But Larger Ace is my starter! The enemy rule will continue to be used in the Wind and Cup tournament, as well as our Gmax balancing rule. I also like to treat the Wind and Cup with the same limitations as the regular Elite Four, so not only will I be limiting myself to 4 Pokemon, but I have to stick with those 4 for each bracket. 1 squad for the semifinals, and 1 squad for the finals. No substitutions. The unlikely group of Immensor, Kiloscorch, Gigantarl, and Cosmic Aja haven't quite gotten their proper time in the limelight, but they're more than ready for it now, and ready to prove it. Just like before, Marnie should be more or less free. You would think that if she wanted to lead with a life part that badly, she'd bother giving it good moves besides Fake Out. Like, why are you setting up Nasty Plot when Snarl is your only special attack? Toxicroak enters in hopes of going for the most obvious Venoshock in history, so Cosmic Aja just absorbs it. We were holding a Prism Berry in the case that Swagger ended up landing and confusing us, but it missed. Our Earthquake misses out on the kill, but after Marnie uses her full restore, the next one high rolls. Cool! For the Scraggy, I'm back to Gigantarl, who is unbothered by the Scary Face and is just as prepared for the Swagger. Once the confusion gets negated, a +2 attack Spear Break could very possibly sweep the rest of the fight. but Morpeko uses Torment right before meeting her maker. I am pretty sure that if we were to Gmax, Torment would become ineffective, but I don't want to risk it. Going blow for blow with Max Starfall does not sound consistent either. But that's why I brought Immensor. The box art Pokemon of the best version of Kanto is here to finally Gigantamax. The only downside to entering the battle this late is that she's looking down the center of a Stardust Meteor Storm. But she can take it. The power of the Bowl Cut can finally be utilized as he outspeeds and fires off Max Ooze. Grimmsnarl's best answer to us is a Gmax Snooze, but it does relatively little damage and only makes Immensor drowsy. If they saw the drowsy effect, I assume it would stall a turn with Max Guard to make us sleep, but nope. Nothing is standing in our way from unleashing a Gmax Vine Lash, which promptly moves us up the bracket. Immensor is in the zone, and because of that, I'm leading with her against Hop. His double has Zen Headbutt, which would hit us for super effective damage, but I'm almost certain that they always lead with Cotton Guard. No, I'm not going to check my previous videos to confirm that. Why would I? The 100% accurate Sleep Powder lands as always, which paves the way for Double to go down to Sludge Bomb. Predictably, Corviknight wants to hit us with a Drill Peck, but Cosmic Aja is pretty well equipped for that. Well, for taking the hits, at least. We have a long back and forth with Hop continuously using Drill Peck, while we use Stone Edge and Brick Break repeatedly. Over this time, I reflected on my lack of having a Rookidee, but honestly, I think that would have been a more boring pick anyways. Like, how often are you seeing Copper get used? Thanks to the leftovers, we eventually come out on top, which leads to Snorlax. Between Hammer Arm, High Horsepower, and Heavy Slam, I need to play carefully around this hibernating Cat Bear. Immensor is relatively safe to set up a Leech Seed and Sleep Powder as always, but our special attacks won't be as effective this time. Instead, I pivot to Kilo Scorch. Snorlax wakes up right away, and scores a crit, but Leech Seed pretty much heals everything back. Once Kilo Scorch lands the Willow, the battle is as good as done. Pincurchin on the other hand could cause us some problems, and their curse builds their bulk to respectful levels, but they just keep setting up rather than attacking, for some reason. A pair from Thunderbolt could have been a huge problem, but after 2 total curses, I Gigantamax Kilo Scorch to rid Hop of that opportunity. That opportunity? Do I have enough puns in these videos for you guys? I feel like I don't have enough puns in these videos, and I'm letting you guys down. I would have Gmaxed earlier, but Pincurchin is bulky enough by default that it would have just been a waste of max turns anyways. Speaking of a waste of max turns, Hop answers my Kaiju Centipede with a Kaiju Gorilla. But somehow the Gorilla always loses. Max Strike hardly even tickles, while Gmax Centinferno 2-shots Hop's final Pokemon, solidifying our placement in the Wind and Cup Finals. Now, I would love to dive straight into that bracket, but unfortunately, I first need to play hide and seek with one of Rose's subordinates, and battle a bunch of Steel Trainers with the weirdest music choice ever. This place isn't even open to the public yet. If they didn't want me reaching the roof, why didn't they just disable the elevator? And another thing, I hate this animation. I could explain why, but the video isn't going to be long enough for that. The problems rooted in Sword and Shield's DNA aside, while Oleana isn't quite a gym leader, I'm still going to challenge her as if she is one. Her team's all around more interesting to fight than most of the trainers up through now, and even her Gmax Scarboater could be a problem. It's faster than my whole team aside from 2, and the Ace sadly has coverage for them. I'll need to be very careful with her first 4 mons to prep for the Gmax. Grandna is holding leftovers in place of a Rossberry, so she retains her burn while taking out the Frostlass. Serena is easily countered by Vastricity, who really should have been holding the Throat Spray, because without it, we got really close to losing to Milotic. Then Lap Massive just takes out Salazzle. Nothing too crazy there. Gmax Scarboater finally comes out, and somehow looks smaller than the other Dynamax Pokemon. Even though we're an Ice type, a Max Rockfall isn't too bad as long as we protect. Cosmic Aja tags in on the very same resisted move, and even tanks the Max Quake off of a Stomping Tantrum with her own Protect. Awesome! That's the end of their Max turns. Now, how do we take this thing out? The team may be hurting now, but we've still got Fat Bull. Huh, I wish I predicted Toxic Spikes. Anyways, I was unsure if we'd ever see it again, but Fat Bull takes this opportunity to Gigantamax. This is the only way we could live a gunk shot at this point, so we retaliate with a Max Warmwind. You might be wondering why I didn't choose Max Airstream, so that we could outspeed and take them out the following turn. And that's because Garbodor has weak armor. Its own speed stat gets raised every time it's hit, so our best course of action was to lower her attack instead. Now I switch back out again. Bye Flatbull, I hope you enjoyed your fat time. And get Grandma back in. She's immune to the Toxic Spikes thanks to the burn, and the leftovers are subduing the damage, which was all totally planned. And then Garbodor uses Toxic Spikes again. I can't really make heads or tails of that, but either way, we get our win, and saved Leon from Chairman Rose? I don't know, I'm pretty sure he was capable of leaving on his own at any point. The Wind & Cup Championship Finals bracket is underway, and once again, I can only bring 4 Pokemon under my rule set, and unlike last time, we'll be battling 4 total opponents. The parameters are much tighter than before, yet somehow 3 of the 4 Pokemon I'm bringing are the same. It turns out that Kiloscorch, Gigantarl, and Cosmic Aja synergize wonderfully. And Vastricity rounds off the team even better. These aren't at all who I thought I was going to bring originally, but each and every one of these 4 come with plenty of surprises. Typically, Beat is a rather threatening start to the Wind Championship. For me. But this time it'll be different. It's true, Vastricity can't really hurt this lead fairy, as Mawile is part steel, but now Cosmic Aja can tag in without an Intimidate hurting her attack. She takes another surprisingly strong crunch before earthquaking the Poke Yokai in return. Gardevoir is typically considered a stronger mon, but this one has no way to consistently hurt us, especially when we Gigantamax. After our amazing yet questionable transformation, Psychic is made out to be even more pitiful, before Gardevoir falls to Gmax Steel Surge. The Steel-type equivalent of Stealth Rocks are set up afterwards, but that extra chip damage is irrelevant to the next mon, as Rapidash is always losing anyways. Sorry, your hair's nice at least? Now you would think that by avoiding the attack drop from Intimidate, and taking out a quarter of Hatterene's health with the Steel Surge, we'd be able to outspeed and take them out with our last max turn. But upon Gigantamaxing, Hatterene is just bulky enough to live even still. We can at least max guard to block their max flare entirely, and now because we know for a fact that they're going for that move, Kiloscorch can absorb it and get powered up thanks to Flash Fire. Fire Lash now brings them to yellow, and the Max Mindstorm is always livable thanks to our Focus Sash. Kiloscorch still outspeeds, and ends the fight with one last Fire Lash. For some reason, Nessa's team lacks that oomph that Beat has. Though it doesn't help her that Vastricity perfectly counters her team. Normally, Golisopod wants to lead with the first impression, but as that move won't be doing anything to us, I predict that they'll set up. In the face of the Bug-type Goliath, we use Shift Gear to raise our speed by 2 stages. As I predicted, they use Swords Dance in return, but it's too late for that. Our Overdrive cleanly takes out Golisopod from full HP and activates our Throat Spray, raising Vastricity's special attack by 1. Nessa's next mon is Barraskewda, which is awesome. Pelipper would have set up the Rain and an extent the Swift Swim if it came out first, but this fish saw the 4 times effective Drill Run and had to go for it. Too bad for Nessa. Thanks to this sequence of events, Vastricity is now guaranteed to outspeed everyone. Now that there's only 3 Pokemon remaining, it's time for my musically inclined lizard to put on a show. The Gmax isn't necessary just yet, but seeing her take out both Seaking and Pelipper is just so satisfying. In the face of Gmax Dreadnought, even with the boost from the Throat Spray, we absolutely needed that extra Kaiju damage. Gmax Stun Shock eliminates the final water type, confirming our sweep. B isn't too different for us, but she does ask just a little more of my Pokemon. Hawlucha is a nasty mon who's fast and can do a lot of damage, but I've got a trick up my sleeve that fits Gigantarl perfectly. Fake Out gets free damage, Protect gets even more free damage from blocking High Jump Kick, and Sucker Punch is just strong enough to finish the job. If we weren't able to cheese Hawlucha, it would have been a big problem. Now, whether her Fouling sets up no retreat or bulk up, or attacks with close combat, Gigantarl needs to get gigantic now. It's bulk up that they ended up using, and the extra damage provided by Max Starfall is just enough to take them out regardless. I think that was a roll though. Surf Etched is no different, but their faster Brick Break did hurt us a good bit first. And then finally, Grapploct was simply outsped, functionally burning up our last turn of Gmax. I wanted them to come out earlier so I could just use Play Rough instead, but ah well. This time around, I'm feeling a tad more confident in fighting the Machamp. Although it's priming a Gmax Chi Strike, because the Phalanx didn't attack earlier, Gigantarl is safe to live a non-crit and retaliate with a Play Rough that does over half. Sucker Punch isn't gonna finish it from this range, so it's time to pivot out in the Kiloscorch. On a max flare? Okay, I didn't even plan for that. That was just lucky. Should I not admit that? The endgame goat then outspeeds as always, and ends Battle 3 with another Fire Lash. And you know what? Who better to lead against Raihan than Kiloscorch? He just can't have a bad matchup in the endgame. He's more of a physical attacker, yes, but Scorching Sands is still insane coverage for the Torkoal. They can only use Yawn before getting taken out in 2 hits, and our Lumberry is sure to wake us up the turn they're knocked out. With the help of Torkoal's Drought, even on a Goodra, Fire Lash is insanely strong. And the crit? Kiloscorch just can't stop winning! As always, Raihan changes the weather on Goodra's very first turn, so now Fire Lash won't be picking up the kill, even with their defense drop. Instead, we need to use Skitter Smack, which will for sure be enough. But I learned the hard way that I should have taught Leech Life instead. The mist left Keel Scorch wide open, and Goodra finds the perfect chance to crit with Muddy Water. I had originally added Skitter Smack because it lowers special attacks when it lands, and because it was easier to get than the other bug-type TRs. Ugh, dude, Keel Scorch was so cool! And he was supposed to be the one to Gmax in this fight. Missing, then Muddy Water landing, and critting was so unlucky. And I absolutely do not have a plan for this. This can be seen in my fumbling in telling Gigantarl to use Fake Out. Not usually a bad move, but Sucker Punch would have just killed, and now Raihan is going to use his full restore. Normally this wouldn't be too bad either, because normally Play Rough would land and knock them out anyways. Unless it misses. Yeah, it's unlucky, but I could have just used Sucker Punch. Gigantarl now takes the rain-boosted Muddy Water before finally landing Play Rough. At least it wasn't a crit. The rain has ended by the time the matchup ended because it took so long, but again, Raihan always sets the weather anyways. That's why we're safe to... I guess without the rain, there's not as much reason to set the sun. Even if we committed our Gmax, one fairy move wouldn't have been enough to take out the Turtonator. The Shell Trap goes off, and Gigantarl falls as well. Learn something new every day. I do not have the right Pokemon to get out of this anymore. My only saving grace is that I haven't Dynamaxed yet, but even that might not be enough. Thankfully though, Earthquake isn't a contact move. Cosmic-Aja, who otherwise would have outsped anyways, takes out the Murder Turtle from a distance without any worries. But only thanks to the damage Gigantarl already landed. With Flygon now threatening a faster stab Earthquake, we absolutely need to take this time to Gigantamax. Of course, this time, they set the Sandstorm. And honestly, I'll take it. I don't know why Copperajah gets Play Rough of all things, but now we could use Max Starfall, set the Misty Terrain, and knock them out in one hit. I have no reason to complain, I guess. And now, Duraludon. This Pokemon has Max Knuckle, which will raise its attack each and every turn it's used. My remaining Pokemon aren't the bulkiest, but given my limited time to do damage, I don't have the luxury of playing passively and using Protect. In order to end this fight, we need to go on the hyper offensive. Max Knuckle 1 leaves Cosmic-Aja in the green, while our Max Quake looks like it does exactly half. Clearly we could live another Max Knuckle, so Max guarding their next turn isn't necessary. The Citrus Berry helps, somewhat, I guess. Our last Max Quake fires off in return, and man, I really should have equipped the Soft Sand instead. There's no escaping Duraludon now. Pivoting won't matter, and a regular Protect won't negate the third attack boost from Max Knuckle. Cosmic-Aja had an insane performance in the Wind and Cup, but she won't be making it out of the fight alive. Duraludon is at +3 attack, and faster than Vastricity. There are only two things that we have going for us. One, Duraludon is in the red, and two, there's still one last turn of Misty Terrain. This was said earlier from the Max Starfall, and weakens all Dragon-type attacks. Somehow, even at +3 attack, this means that Duraludon's Dragon Claw can't kill, and instead Stone Edge is their new strongest move, which has a high crit chance. The run only lives if Vastricity somehow does. And beyond all reason, Vastricity survives the +3 Stone Edge and uses Overdrive to take out Duraludon and defeat Raihan once and for all. I think subconsciously I lean into the flashiness of the battles too often. Leech Life would have been more reliable than Skitter Smack, the Soft Sand would have kept Cosmic-Aja strong enough to take out Duraludon and survive, and the Choice Scarf would have let Vastricity just outspeed Duraludon. There were a lot of things I did wrong, and while the punishment window was like insanely tiny, it was also insanely avoidable. We doubled the deaths, and the hardest challenges are yet to come. Chairman Rose is not one of those challenges, however. While I'm one fire type down, my starter is still around. With a charcoal boosted Fire Punch to help offset the risk of Pyro Ball missing, the opposing steel types really stood no chance. I couldn't help myself though, I still used Pyro Ball anyways. As the battle goes on, we can capitalize and finally Gigantamax Large Erase along the way. It isn't just for show, though Large Erase does put on quite the show, because we actually needed it for the Gmax-capable. We all saw Cosmic-Aja's performance after all, I could not risk that. Eternatus does ask a little more of me, so for this fight, I get Beefy Beetle to set up Light Screen. He does this job better than any other, and enables Imensor to come in and utilize a strategy that's just as good today as it was in Gen 1. Sleep Powder, Leech Seed, and Earthquake. This fallen deity never stood a chance. I would love to say that it's the same case for the Eternamax fight. For the most part, it's one giant cutscene, with the box art legendaries helping me out a ton. But on the final turn of the fight, instead of doing damage, they don't! Well, my goat Zamazenta does, but Zacian wanted to help Beefy Beetle get the final hit. Unfortunately, Eternatus is still faster, and even though we have light screen up, Max Flare is enough for them to burn up my first capture. Man, what is happening with me? I could have predicted and let Hop get the kill, as he does anyways, or pivoted to Larger Ace, who was holding the Assault Vest. But it was my understanding that Eternatus would just focus down the dogs the entire time. Now I know for next time, but that stings. I only have 6 Pokemon left, with only 5 allowed to go on and fight Leon. I could capture the remaining Gmaxes in the wild, such as Duraludon, Snorlax, or Meowth, but it wouldn't feel right to do that so late in the game. All things considered, it looks like Immensor will be the one to sit out this climactic battle. I've routed everything to the best of my abilities, leaving me with these 5 mons perfectly suited to handle Leon. There are a couple gambles we'll have to make along the way, but with all of the loss that we've accumulated, that's something that we'll have to deal with. Leon isn't holding anything back in this fight. Even if I were to bring a full team of 6 and use Gigantamax, I would still have to spend a good chunk of time preparing. Of course, the thought had crossed my mind to set someone up with Max Airstream and just outspeed and sweep from there, but no one quite had the right moveset to pull it off. Instead, I'm leading with Larger Ace to handle Leon's Aegislash. Like many other conceptions I had about this game, another one turned out to be a misconception. I thought that Aegislash would always lead with a King Shield, especially in front of a physical attacking fire type. With this in mind, we use Bulk Up, but alas, Leon calls Shadow Ball instead. We could take one, and mostly guarantee Pyro Ball landing afterwards thanks to our wide lens, but that damage was very unfortunate. On top of that, I was fully expecting Inteleon to come out next with its Stab Snipe Shot, but taking the Shadow Ball damage meant that Haxorus and its Earthquake are now just as likely to enter. Immediately, my routing has been ruined. My answer to Haxorus is Lap Massive, who could take an Earthquake fairly well, stall a turn with Protect, and recover with Leftovers, and Gigantamax immediately after to functionally weaken the next attack and get an OHKO with Gmax Resonance. Doing all of that was always part of the plan, but it's so early in the fight that the set Aurora Veil won't be lasting long enough to reach the Charizard matchup. I could have equipped the Light Clay to cover for this, but the Leftovers and Protect covered for any untimely crit. I also didn't expect to Gmax this early. Was that clear? Otherwise, this next portion goes mostly to plan. Dragapult is next, and outspeeds to land a soft Thunderbolt. I don't mind taking it, but of course it gets the paralysis. I guess Leon is the champion for a reason. Fortunately, Lap Massive powers through to land yet another Resonance, meaning Dragapult goes down and brings out Mr. Rhyme. While Leon still has Inteleon in the back, I still want to use Max Geyser. Yeah, it's the stronger move against the Ice type, but it will also set the rain and weaken Charizard's Gmax Wildfires. With its different secondary effect, there's no way for Leon to undo the weather. Unfortunately, Lap Massive does get fully parried on his final max turn, so no dice. I at least know that the Freeze Dry is getting baited, as opposed to Psychic for some reason, so Larger Ace can re-enter the battle safely, and once again use Pyro Ball and get a knockout. Now, Inteleon is here, and we outspeed to get a good amount of chip damage with the U-turn, before Fat Bull takes what turned out to be a Mud Shot. Snipe Shot would have made more sense, I'm just saying. The trade sort of balances out as they just waste a turn using Tearful Look next, because Grav Apple is still strong enough even after the attack drop. But this is where the consequences of the reroute ramp up. I have Pokemon that can outspeed Charizard, namely Larger Ace and a Choice Scarf Fastricity. However, this line has left Fat Bull in front of Leon's strongest Pokemon, and her Grass Dragon typing doesn't even bait Gmax Wildfire, it baits Max Airstream. Once that attack is used, Charizard will outspeed everyone, and there's really nothing I can do about it. The Aurora Veil ended long ago, and the only option left is to hope that Flapple can survive at least one attack and lower their defense with Grav Apple. But we were not so fortunate. I calced it, and there was a chance. Okay, Grednaw has access to rock moves and is holding the Focus Sash. What's the problem? Well, no strong rock attack is 100% accurate, and no rock attacks are equipped. Grednaw was prepared for every other outcome except for this one. Bringing Zard to half before Grednaw entered was supposed to be easy, but instead, we get taken to our Sash, do about half with Liquidation, and then Grednaw stalls out the final turn of Gmax by sacrificing herself. It really hurts, especially after all of the matches that Grednaw clutched up in the run, but it had to be done. Larger Race and Lap Massive are too slow and too low to finish this fight. Sending them in would simply be a death sentence. Just like with countless battles before now, I need Vastricity to take us home. Charizard may not have Gmax Wildfire anymore, but he still has Fire Blast. All Vastricity needs to do is live one final turn, but Charizard lands the Fire Blast. Which isn't enough to take out the legend that is Vastricity. As an answer to everything leading up to now, even without Gigantamaxing, Vastricity lands a critical overdrive that wins us the fight against Leon, that wins us the Wind & Cup Championship Finals, and wins us the entire game. Isn't it so cool that I could spend thousands of hours playing a franchise and still get so close to losing these challenge runs? So much for my deathless win streak, oh my gosh. Maybe I should have caught all the possible encounters in the run after all. Like, even with Max Airstream being replaced, Gmax Corviknight would have probably been pretty cool. But today I got to use Mons and forms that I never do, and had a great time. It would have been nicer if 2/3 of my beloved creatures didn't meet Arceus, but it was still fun. Thank you all so much for watching today. If you liked the video, then I suggest doing all of that fun YouTube stuff. Liking, subscribing, hyping, etc. if you haven't already, and let me know what kind of challenge you'd like to see me do next. I don't always take the suggestions right away, but they do get added to the possibility list. It's a long list, and I would share it, but hey, no spoilers. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.